Morning, viewers. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform initiated by Women Rights Initiative to share views on issues that affect women, but also discuss and see how we together can empower and lift the voices of women and also encourage them to participate in issues of development and see that we all have peaceful families. My name is Annette Nyanyitono, and I'm moderating today's discussion. Our discussion is going to be centered. With me, I have a guest. I'll let her introduce herself so that you can relate better with her.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers from the different parts of the country. My name is Agatha. My name is Agatha Christine. I'm a clinical psychologist. I am well versed with mental health. I've been doing this for over 15 years. And I'm very passionate about women and marginalized groups, and I'm really happy to be here today, and I hope that as we deliberate, we can be able to have an insight of what mental health and mental illness is all about. So thank you for having me today on the platform.
You're so much welcome, and we are grateful that you spare time to speak to us.
Sure.
Of course, mental health a big issue that we probably discuss and share. The viewers can know how to handle the situation. Because it does surface. I would like to understand what.
Okay. Well, mental health, if you're to look at the whole aspect of mental health, we have two major things that we should take note of. The first one is mental health as a component. It's just the general state in which you are in. Either you are well or you're not well. But before we understand mental health completely, we have something also called the mental illness. Okay, so there are two things that people normally interchange, mental illness and then the mental health. So mental health is just a person's condition. It regards your condition, and that is your psychological and emotional, how you are with what you think and with how you feel. That is mental health. But what differs in mental health is either a person can be mentally ill or they can be mentally stable. Those are the two things that we need to pick out of all of this. So if we are looking at mental health, that is the general well-being of a person, the way they are, the way they behave, the way they think. Is it okay, or does it put them in a state of unhappiness? That is mental health. So under mental health, we find mental illnesses, and those ones are a result of you not being in a good state mentally. If you are not fit in terms of how you think, in terms of how you feel, then you can end up slipping into the mental illnesses that we talk about. So that's just very briefly and simply, that's what mental health is all about.
Okay. So
yes,
Women Rights Initiative with survivors of gender-based violence. We mental and survivors struggle because of this trauma and that they go through. And can GBV affect the mental health? And gender-based violence the mental health? person?
Yes, absolutely. Uh, First of all, women or people who experience gender-based violence are 3 times more likely to have suicidal tendencies than the normal person. Because one thing I'll tell you about being in a state of helplessness or hopelessness, have you, if I want all the viewers to look back into their lives to a place where they felt they were completely they had no hope, they had no way out. I believe everyone has gotten to that point. But imagine if you get to such a state and the people that you relate with are the people who cause you harm. I would like to give an example or a scenario of a woman who is being battered by her husband or relatives or family members. This is supposed to be your safe haven. But if these people are the ones that are causing you distress, you're going to feel like life is done with. So, what you will most likely want to do is you'd want to put yourself in a state of self-harm. So, the number one thing with gender-based violence is the way it demeans a person. So if gender as a person, if you're demeaned because of these different situations, you're going to find that you want to take your life away. So that's one of the things. People who experience gender-based violence, you're going to find that they also have anxiety. There's too much anxiety. There's loss of self-esteem. And then depression. And with depression, most of us call ourselves depressed, but we have a difference between depression and being stressed. There is a very big
Mm.
difference. Once you slip into depression, we normally call it clinical depression. Then that means that you're no longer in control of your emotions. They have to use medicines to control or help your emotions not to overlap one another. And if you have ever experienced a situation where you lose yourself, that is a very big loss no one wants to be in. Loss of control of your emotions. So when we talk about GBV, it's very, very serious in impacting mental health. I cannot
Mm.
say that a person who is experiencing all that levels of abuse emotionally and physically can be in a sound mind to live their lives in the best way possible. Everything around them is affected. So, yes, gender based violence and mental health have a very negative impact on a person as an individual.
So what common symptoms we and know that this person is
Pardon, and
experiencing uh, what are signs of look to see or to if someone is probably through depression and probably mental health is not
well, first of all, like I mentioned earlier, people who are signs of depression, if you find that you are sad all the time, people who are slipping into mental illnesses or who are experiencing bad mental health, they normally have extremes of everything. Everyone has sleepless nights sometimes, but if you have prolonged, the keyword here is prolonged, something that is prolonged and you have no control over, is it's a clear sign that you're going to the edge. So one of the signs is insomnia, something we call insomnia. That is the lack of sleep. You experience lack of sleep, or there are those who oversleep. It's also extreme. They don't want to get out of bed. Then you find that the person is experiencing unhappiness most of the time. They are just unhappy. Small things can trigger them. All of us have been built to acknowledge or accept or accommodate stress when it comes in. But a person who is experiencing all of this, normally anything small can trigger you. We have what we call triggers. Even something innocent can just be a trigger for you, and you find that you become moody all the time. You cry for no good reason. You just get in a state and you're like, I'm just not happy. And these people also withdraw normally from society. They withdraw from people that they interact with. They are not interested in any activities around them. they lack appetite. There are those who overeat beyond what is normal. You will find that they get aggressive, in ways that don't call for it. You find something small and a person overreacts. The prolonged stress. So the key thing about all of this is, how are you feeling emotionally and then physically? So most of the time you will find the physical features as, I'm not sleeping, I'm just too tired, I have no interest in anyone, in any activities, I have loss of appetite. And then emotionally, you'll find that a person has they have no interest in any activity, they have no interest in making their life better. People who have been demeaned normally, they have low self-esteem. And there's a big saying that misery loves company. So it is very, very easy to just live your life and be sorry for everything you're going through, and then want other people to feel sorry for you. So if I'm looking at a woman who is experiencing gender-based violence, the key thing for her is, if she loses her self-worth, that state of helplessness or hopelessness, losing interest. You may even have children, but you're no longer interested in their well-being. You're no longer interested in anything, even something that is good. You just experience sadness. Those are key signs that things are not going well for you, and you need to pay attention. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So,
mental illness is what I just want to say, Annette, according to what you are asking here, is mental illness can be as a result of gender-based violence. There's something we call post-traumatic stress disorder. That is you reliving the same trauma over and over and over again. I would just like to give an example. It's not related to this specifically, but there was a time I faced certain people, like a car hijacking around Lugogo Mall, and I would find that every time I got to that spot, I would just start sweating, and I would have anxiety attacks, So that is a result of you getting exposed to the same event that happened to you back then, and then it starts bringing the reactions based on you. So people who are experiencing gender-based violence most likely are going to experience the symptoms that I've mentioned above. And if it's not treated, it can make them slip into a very bad state, even leading to suicide.
okay, thank you for letting. Speaking of the signs and symptoms, it's the same with children, or experience differently.
Well, children and adults will experience the same symptoms. However, with children, processing these emotions is a bit difficult, because children most of the time don't understand what's going on. The biggest challenge is when, as a child, I'm experiencing this trauma, and then I run to an adult who does not understand the interpretation of my symptoms or emotions. And you see, most of the time, we've had situations where a child will experience trauma and the adult will not be supportive. And what happens with children normally is they suppress these emotions, and it later on affects them in future. When they become adults, they begin reliving these experiences. This is why you see a child who has been in an abusive home becomes an abuser himself, because that's the only way he understands how to deal with maybe a woman. He knows that for a woman to be submissive, she has to be beaten. So it's a pattern that develops. So no, children and adults do not process this in the same way. Children need someone to interpret for them these emotions, and because their brains are not fully developed to understand and process what's going on, they need a bigger figure to help them give direction. But with adults, we have been people who have experience. We have different experiences in our lives. We have social support systems, and we can be able to interpret and know right from wrong, and know that if I stayed in this kind of situation, it's most likely to lead to this. So the way they process and understand is very different. However,
Okay,
they will
because
experience the same emotions, yes, but it's the interpretation.
okay,
Yes, please.
In that mostly understand this mental health,
Mm.
it's witchcraft, and so you'll find that for support because they one that probably begins to behave abnormally has been bewitched or it's spirits or it's like, but how can we understand more that if someone for help and they can be well, uh, mental illnesses they believe that cannot go away once someone.
Okay. Well, what you are bringing out is an issue of myths and misconceptions about mental health. First of all, people believe that if you are diagnosed as mentally ill, it means that you're mad, like you said, and witchcraft. And I understand where they come from because some of the signs and symptoms of mental illness present as things that society cannot interpret. And because they cannot interpret this, of course, they will conclude that it's either evil or their mental illnesses. And I applaud you for being a platform that is sensitizing people about mental health. Now, number one, if you are mentally ill or if you are diagnosed to have a mental illness, the good news is that that illness can be managed and you can overcome that kind of state you are in by seeking, of course, medical attention and getting on medications that control those emotions that tend to put you out of control. So, yes, people who have gotten into mental illnesses like depression have been able to overcome it and come out of it. Then there are those that you just manage. The trick about being in control of your mental health is number one, understanding the triggers, those things that trigger you and bring you to a state of helplessness. Then, secondly, is you understanding your thought patterns. What kind of thoughts am I allowing to interpret my triggers? If you were abused as a woman, or if you're a survivor of GBV, does it make you less than any other person around? No. But what are the thoughts that you are processing, or the thoughts that you are allowing to interpret for you the circumstances that surround you? So also another thing is that people need to understand that what happens to us does not dictate how you will react. Okay, what happens to us is unfortunate. There are things you cannot control. What you can control is your thoughts. So with mental health, and I want to talk to all the people here who are survivors of GBV, we focus more on rehabilitating our thought patterns. That is how you get in control of a situation. That is the number one thing. If you can believe that you deserve better, you can heal and you can come out of it, then all the interventions that are put in place can be able to make sense for you. So, mental health, you can overcome it. Being mentally ill or having experienced mental illness does not mean you are a weak. It's not a sign of weakness. Okay, that's another thing that people struggle with so much. It means that you were in an unfortunate situation, but you can be able to rise out of it and come out of it. Okay, being in a mentally challenging situation also requires you to understand that there are support systems that can help you to process these emotions and to overcome them. So Annette, basically, the myths that people have about mental illnesses or mental health, they are just myths. But it's not a sign that you are weak. It's not a sign that you cannot overcome it. You can overcome. The key thing to being in control is when you realize that there's a problem. Once you identify what the problem is, then it's very easy to find interventions to overcome them. Like they normally say that knowledge is power. So if you are knowledgeable, then you can be able to overcome so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I wanted you to enlighten us about how someone reaches the probably receive medication, is there a certain usually find it hard to convince our cancer is very important for them not to reach that be probably taken to a rehabilitation hospital. I would say. So it's because I think it's because our culture taught us or encouraged us to that will help us even when of abuse, for example, really to really manage. So I want to probably to us about those uh, before we go to medication, things like counseling, how and
Okay, thank you. One thing that I will emphasize about your mental health or the situations that you go through is counseling is like first aid treatment normally. There are two types of people who treat mental illnesses. We have what we call the psychiatrist, and then we have the psychologist, and this is where the counselors also fall. A psychiatrist is going to just give medication to control your emotions that have gone out of control. Once they control that, they are going to call a psychologist in or a counselor to come and treat your emotive, that is the behavior or your thoughts. So, Annette, when a person needs to understand that counseling is the first aid, or it is the doorkeeper that prevents you from losing your mind. A problem shared is a problem half solved. What most people do is they believe that they can talk to their friends, but what we don't realize is that our friends are just supporters of our emotions. If you don't like someone, your friends will support you, to get angry on your behalf, abuse on your behalf, just supporting you emotionally, but they're not helping you. Now, what professional counseling does, it helps you to identify the problem that you don't know. When you go to a counselor is not biased, they are neutral. So they are going to help you to look at the part of where you have to take responsibility. The part that, people who are survivors of GBV, most of the time they blame themselves for everything, even things that are not, because of the victim mentality. You believe that you're not good enough. A person puts you to that state, abusing you emotionally. And you begin to believe that you don't deserve much, you're not worthy, you're not good enough. And what most of these people lose is their free will to fight, their free will to walk away from situations that can put them to the extreme end. So if you go to a counselor is going to help you to identify the triggers. Always remember that triggers are the gateway to either you accepting to be abused or for you being able to suffer. So counseling is very amazing with what it does. You can maybe also what I can try to explain here is we have what we call stress, then we have what we call burnout, and then we have what we call depression. I want to explain these three things in relation to a person who is experiencing abuse. And the question that you asked me, if I experience stress, which we all do, you can overcome it on your own. But if you take over 2 weeks and you realize that the stress is not leaving, it's causing you more and more pain, then you need to talk to someone professional. If you talk to someone professional, they can be able to bring you back to a state where you can overcome that situation. But if that stress is prolonged, we call it burnout. Burnout is when you get headaches, you feel sick, literally, you go to hospital, they tell you there's nothing wrong with you. You can't eat. All of those signs, they're a bit mild. Now, if you do not treat it at that situation, then now you slip to what we call the depressive state. And depression is like the gateway to all mental illnesses. Once you get depressed, you lose interest in everything, and that's now where you can slip into what we call clinical depression, and then a psychiatrist has to come in and treat you to overcome those challenges that you're going through. So I just want to tell the viewers that counseling is very, very, very important. It's very important for all of us. You must understand that you must understand that people have challenges, but these challenges can be overcome if we interact with a professional person. So yes, Annette, I'm sorry I've taken too long on this specific issue, but the key thing we want to emphasize here is please don't talk to friends about issues you cannot interpret, especially about your mental health. Go to a professional. A professional is going to help you identify those hidden patterns, those hidden triggers that you don't know that are maintaining your problem.
Okay. You, Agatha, in the region where we women commit suicide, you find someone committing suicide, killing probably the children and committing suicide. Can you on the tendencies and how we can the community can be supportive in spotting few tendencies, probably seek for help from institutions or families, friends.
Okay. Unfortunately, suicide is something that is not understood in our community. Most people believe that if you are suicidal, of course, it's selfishness, and they will go ahead to criticize family members or survivors, and you as well. But one thing I first of all would like to emphasize to the viewers is a person who becomes suicidal always believes that death is a better option than living. And the reason why they do this is because, if you've been in a state where you've lost the will to live, or you've lost that help, that hope, that you're in a state of helplessness, then it's very easy for you to sleep. So what are some of the signs that you can see? If a person is speaking about death more than living, that's one of the things. Then we also have two scenarios here. We have people who are suicidal, but they're crying out for help. Those ones normally will threaten. If you find a person threatening you that if you do this to me, I will go, that is the first sign you need to know that that person is not yet strong enough to take their life, but they're having thoughts about it. And this is where you have to help them seek for medical attention. The people who normally become suicidal, they don't give warnings. The ones who will commit suicide, they don't warn you. They'll just do it and leave a note there, and you'll wonder. But the signs we can see from, like we said, again, depression and suicide have a relationship together. So the signs of a person not sleeping, a person is withdrawn, they are not eating, they are sad all the time, those are things that we need to pay attention to. If someone can pay attention to them and refer a person, we also need to know the referral points. Where can these people get help from? Where can they be talked to without being criticized? So the key thing is, if you hear a person threatening you that they are suicidal, just know that their state of mind is adjusting. Okay? And all the symptoms that we talked about of mental illnesses, anything that is not normal to you should not be taken for granted. If a person doesn't behave in ways that society accepts. So even a woman who takes herself and takes her children out of this world is a person who believes that they would rather be dead and immune to the things of this world than be existent with the suffering and the torture that is here. Yes.
Speaking of how support survivors specifically on the issue of mental health, because we work with different partners and we do different roles, but we seem to have lost Agatha. But we were speaking about mental health and we were about to conclude, and we wanted to understand how best we can seek support, because the issue of mental health affects everyone. If your partner is depressed, affected, relatives will be affected at your back. We want to how best we can gender-based violence in mental health. And I was sharing with that we work with different partners with GBV, and basically we work with the hospitals, work with the media, and frontliners. We work hand in hand with the community. I wanted you to share on we can support survivors of GBV not to reach at a level where they can have mental illnesses.
Okay, the first thing, of course, is you need to talk about your feelings. We have to encourage them to talk about their feelings. In talking about their feelings, they're able to vent out, and they're able to overcome some of those things that they're bottling inside themselves. If you have a platform that enables you to talk about how you feel, then you can be able to offload most of these things. If I don't know if as a platform you guys have support groups for GBV. I believe you do, where people can sit in focus group, like, and talk about their pain. Once I hear someone talk about their pain, then I'll realize that, oh, maybe mine is not as bad as theirs. Then it's very easy to normalize these feelings. So if people are allowed to talk about their feelings without being shamed, that's one of the ways in which we can support them to avoid mental breakdowns. And then engaging them in activities, allowing them to be active. And like I said again, the first thing that you have to do for people who are experiencing abuse is to give them a safe environment. Like right now, I know you have a platform for domestic violence. If a woman knows that I'm being abused, I can walk into the women's voice, and I will be able to be supported. So if you give them that platform and then engage them in activities that enable them to be active, then it's going to take their mind off this pain. A balanced diet is very important. Eating well is also very important. And people, the good news is that we can even still survive on cheap foods but highly nutritious. Okay. And I want to speak to all the people that are listening to this platform today. The key to overcoming pain or to overcoming any kind of challenge you have is not to be afraid to ask for help. You must always ask for help. That is it. Even in counseling, we say that a client is an expert at their own problem, but a client who is able to ask for help is a client who will be sufficiently supported. Okay? So it's also okay sometimes if you don't feel like doing something, you need to take a break. Identify things that you are good at. That is the way that we can support. But normally, as a community, people suffering from GBV are only asking for one thing, and that's acceptance. If you accept me as I am, it means you will not be judgmental. It means that you will not criticize me for accepting maybe abuse in my life. You're just giving me a safe environment where I can be able to express myself, express my emotions. That is what mental health is all about. Mental health is about creating a safe space for a person to mentally accept that they are worthy and exist also in an environment where people see them for them and not for being victims of their circumstances.
Thank you so much, Agatha, for sharing. We had to speak about mental health today. Just yesterday, I met my way, and she was connecting. She was speaking to me, but like I felt that she was going. Suddenly, a few But I think two women came. They told me that she had a lot. They took her away from the road, but it was going through my mind the whole day, and I was what could be the problem and what could like I was on my way to she just crossed my path, but discussion can save a life. Today can speak to someone help and together we can do something. It's someone to help someone. So meeting time to speak about this also important issue. Cannot go beyond this point. Thank you viewers that follow this discussion on today and next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.